Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar on the topic of understanding youth and organized crime. I'm Candace Critchlow from the Port Coquitlam Community Police Station, working as part of Coquitlam RCMP Community Policing Team. We're excited to bring you today's presentation as part of our 2021 Community Safety Webinar Series. The hope is that with youth going back to school and everyone getting acquainted with the new norm, what other risk factors are there for youth? How can we build resiliency and really understand how organized crime could be enticing? Joining us today, we have some great community partners from different areas. We have our Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit of BC, so CFSEU. We have our Media Relations Officer and End Gang Life Manager, which is Sergeant Brenda Winpenny. We also have our Gang Intervention and Exiting Team, where we have Corporal Bob Sangha and Miss Rubina Kang. From Vancouver Police Department and Her Time Vancouver, we have Detective Anisha, Myette, and Sergeant Sandy Avelar. Coquitlam RCMP Community Response Team was supposed to be on our call today, but unfortunately they've been called out for operational purposes and they send their regrets. But we will experience some wonderful presentations from CFSU and Her Time Vancouver, and we will open it up afterwards to our panelists for some answered questions in order to address those things that are coming from a registered audience. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll take it away with CFSU.
Perfect. Thank you, Candace, for the introductions, and hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for my colleague, Sergeant Brenda Winpenny and Corporal Bob Sangha to log to sign on, because I don't believe. There we go. Hi, Brenda. Perfect. Hi. So we're going to spend the next 15 minutes just sharing some information with you all about our End Gang Life initiative, and we're going to share information about some of the signs and the risk factors to look out for that may indicate that your child or someone that you know may be involved in the gang lifestyle. And then we're going to end off by talking about our gang intervention and exiting program, which is a resource that may or may not benefit you if you are dealing with a young person in your life that's involved in gang life. So I'm going to turn it over to our Media Relations Officer and Manager of End Gang Life, Sergeant Brenda Winpenny.
Thanks, Rubina, and thanks very much for allowing us to be here today. Just a little bit about CFSU. CFSU is the Provincial Anti-Gang Unit. It's an integrated policing unit made up of over 400 employees, both civilian and sworn members from 14 different agencies. Our headquarters is here in the RCMP's Green Timbers building in Surrey. We also have offices in Victoria, Kelowna, and Prince George. Our mandate being, obviously, as you can see from the slide here, is to target, investigate, prosecute, disrupt, and dismantle organized crime groups and individuals that pose the highest risk to public safety due to their involvement in gang violence. And to do this, we utilize several investigative teams who focus on their efforts to fulfill our mandate, focusing on investigations such as organized crime, money laundering, firearms trafficking, and illegal drugs. We use a number of overt and covert techniques and resources to assist us in those investigations, such as surveillance, covert asset management, which would mean to you information from human sources. And we also have a brand new provincial lab that CFSU manages in order to process firearms in a timely manner and hopefully assist with those investigations. Along with our investigations, we have our enforcement side, our very covert side, which is our uniform gang enforcement team. You may have seen them out in your communities, and they target the people that pose the highest risk to public safety through their involvement in gang violence that would be out on the streets, driving around in vehicles, drug dealing, that type of thing. And they focus their efforts on that. Which then leads me to the education and prevention side, which is near and dear to my heart. This is something that we look after in our unit. And in 2013, understanding that there was a need to have that education and prevention side, we created and launched End Gang Life. End Gang Life being our comprehensive gang education, prevention, and awareness initiative that uses both emotional and visually impactful images and messages to engage the public about gangs, provide material and educate the public about the realities and dangers of gangs, prevent youth and young adults from joining gangs, and encourage those involved in gang life to exit. We have a host of educational products such as videos, posters, booklets. We've created a comic, and all these resources are available on our website if anybody wishes to go into our website and take a look. And to address the encouraging individuals involved in gang life to exit and support those people, CFSU has launched a one-of-a-kind, first of its kind, gang intervention and exiting program. And I will let Rubina, our program manager, talk about that.
Thanks, Brenda. So before we begin to talk a little bit about what the program is, I want to give a little bit of overview as to what are some of the signs and some of the early precursors that you can look for in your child or in one of the youth in your life that may be indicative of their involvement in the gang lifestyle. And bear in mind that we've got about 15 minutes for this presentation, which usually takes us about over an hour to do. So if you do have questions for us, please feel free to reach out to us directly. We will be including our contact information at the end of the presentation. So just some things to look out for. One of the things, and this is of course a very, very early sign, is looking for any changes in your child's behavior. Are you noticing, for example, that there is a shift in their attitude that's outside what you would consider their normal? Now, of course, you know your child best. So if you notice any type of behavior change, a change in the language, perhaps you've even noticed a decline in their performance at school. You may have concerned teachers or school staff that meet with you to share that they are also noticing a change in behavior. That might be a really good opportunity for you to have a conversation with your child to see what's going on in his or her life. You may also notice that there could be a sudden change in their close friends. So maybe they were hanging out with a certain group of people, and now all of a sudden they may be hanging out with individuals that are new, individuals that could even be older than them in age. Because what we see sometimes is that it's often individuals that are older and maybe higher grades or even graduated from high school that are trying to recruit youth into gang activities. The other thing to look out for is, does your child all of a sudden have cash that they can't explain? So for example, if your child doesn't have a job, or you don't give them an allowance, or how much of an allowance you give, and then all of a sudden they have new clothes or shoes or maybe certain jewelry, that might be some things to look out for that can kind of turn out, might be a sign that they could be involved in some type of gang activity, whether that be drug trafficking or other gang activities. The other thing that's really indicative of drug trafficking is if you've noticed your child is out for long periods of time. And of course, these are some of those later signs that occur. So for example, if your child is involved in drug trafficking, they may be out of the house for 10 plus hours at a time. Or they may be leaving their home or your home for short periods of time, multiple times throughout the day. And this might be indicative of them engaging in the trafficking of drugs. So meeting up with individuals and selling drugs. And of course, some of the extremes are, have you maybe perhaps seen any type of firearms, knives, or other weapons that they hide in their room? And that's another really important thing, is having access to their bedroom, or if you've noticed that they're frequently accessing another part of the home that isn't necessarily accessed or frequented by other members of the home, because that could be a place that they use to store weapons or drugs. So for example, they may be frequenting the garage or another part of the house, like for example, a shed, which they never maybe did before, or they may actually close off in terms of letting you access their room. So perhaps locking their door or being really possessive about you coming into their bedroom. And just some visuals as to some things that you may notice. So for example, if you notice that your child now has multiple cell phones, that could be a sign of them engaging in drug trafficking. And images that you see on the screen here with the small baggies of drugs, that is an indication that your child is either holding or participating in drug activities. And of course, if you do have a vehicle that your child uses often, and you notice that there is some Vaseline or petroleum jelly in there, that could also be a sign that they're involved in drug trafficking, or maybe that they are participating in the form of being a passenger in a vehicle. Because one of the common trends that we're seeing now is that youth are not only being used to engage in the trafficking of drugs in dial-a-dope operations, but they're also being used to essentially store drugs. And what I mean by that is that when if you are a part of an operation of a dial-a-doping scheme, which is essentially, think of like a pizza delivery service where you have a phone that is linked to a drug line, and if I were a drug user, I would call that line to purchase drugs. And youth are being lured to not only traffic those drugs, but like I mentioned earlier, store them. And what that's termed, it's called hooping. So they're inserting the drugs either in their vagina or in their rectum as a way to hide the drugs and evade police if they're ever being followed. So again, just really quickly, these are some of the signs that you can look for if you feel like your child may be involved in drug trafficking. Of course, there are many others, and I always say this, that nobody wakes up one day and decides that they're going to join a gang. There's of course a process that takes place, and that's why we wanted to highlight some of those early kind of signs with the behavior change and the change in attitude, and then how that can lead to some of those more concrete indications that your child may be involved in drug trafficking. And when we think of the roles of youth and gangs, it varies. So they could be involved in trafficking of drugs or weapons. They could be, cooking drugs and packaging them in a drug house. Some of them are also engaging in violence. So they're enforcing drug debts. They're engaging in acts of theft or violence. Young people are being trained on how to commit homicide. So they're being trained on how to be shooters in instances of gang violence. And again, like I mentioned earlier, they may be the drivers, and they also engage in recruiting other youth for the purposes of drug trafficking, for the purposes of sexual exploitation, and they're training youth on how to conduct these activities. And I did mention the piece about sexual exploitation and the engagement of young people in the sex trade. And I'm not going to get too much into this because we do have individuals here from her time that are going to really elaborate on this piece. So I'm going to leave that for the presentation with her time that's upcoming after. So you may be wondering, well, where do gangs recruit? And, there's no one answer, because our youth are being recruited in anywhere that you can think, whether it's in the schools, in parks or rec centers. They're being recruited through their friends, and being online is one of the major areas that youth are being recruited. So whether that's through apps such as Instagram or Snapchat or other apps that youth are using these days, it's a way for gang members to glorify the lifestyle, to show off the lifestyle and what people can have if they engage. And it's a way to essentially trap individuals into thinking that they can also have that lifestyle. And it's very similar to the way that young women and girls and young males are recruited for the purposes of being sexually exploited, and when they're groomed. Youth are also being groomed in some cases to engage in the gang lifestyle. And through friends is huge, because when we looked at the research that comes out of our program, one of the key findings when we ask individuals what motivated them to get involved in gang lifestyle, a large majority of them shared that it was because of their friends. So as parents, it's really important that you pay attention to who your child is hanging out with, and to have a really good understanding of, maybe that youth's family, what the youth situation is, and what kinds of things that youth is involved in. Because if your child is hanging out with individuals that are engaged in gang activities, their risk of engaging in gang activities heightens. And so you really want to make sure that you have a good understanding of who your child's social circle is. So we're going to segue now into talking about our gang intervention and exiting program. And this is a great resource that you could access if you feel that your child or someone that you know is involved in gang life, because through our intervention pillar, we're actually able to come in and provide an intervention strategies for those that are involved in the gang lifestyle. And through different intervention techniques, we're able to provide the anti-gang education with the intent of promoting and empowering individuals to make that decision to exit gang life. So that's one of the pillars of our program. And we also have our exiting component. So whether, you know, an individual is successfully ready through an intervention to exit, we also are able to intake individuals that don't require an intervention, but perhaps through some circumstances in their life, they have made that conscious decision to exit gangs. And so when we do receive referrals, we have the capacity to provide various different supports to individuals who are ready to exit gang life. One of the things that I really want to emphasize is that participation in our program is voluntary. So we receive referrals from a variety of different sources, including parents. But the thing that we really want to emphasize is that because the participation is voluntary, we can't force someone to exit gang life. Through our intervention efforts and through our anti-gang education efforts, we can lead them to a path that could lead them to make the decision to exit. However, we don't force anyone because it is a voluntary program. Our program operates within the Lower Mainland, and we work with anybody who's over the age of 12. And what's really unique about our program is that our team consists of civilian case managers as well as police officers who work together to provide a case management approach where we offer a variety of services to our clients. We are able to provide them with clinical counseling, pay for things such as tattoo removals or cover up, help them with their educational or employment goals. And a key component to our program is providing that ongoing emotional and practical support, because as you can imagine, making the decision to leave the gang lifestyle and leave all your friends behind is a huge step for anyone to take. And they're basically having to relearn how to lead a pro-social, healthy lifestyle. And so a lot of the work that the team does is providing that ongoing emotional and practical support. And we also recognize the importance of including family members, healthy pro-social family members in this process, because as a young person who is attached to family, we understand that the family can be an entity that would support the individual exit their gang lifestyle. And so our services are also extended to family members, so they could also access supports to help the family heal through whatever situations and circumstances that they were going through that not only led the youth to get involved in the lifestyle, but also the things that they went through while their youth was involved in the gang lifestyle. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. I know that that was a lot of information in such a short period of time. I will leave information about our intervention helpline here. You'll see that there's a phone number and an email proxy on the screen. This the cell phone and email is monitored by a member of our team. And so you can feel free to reach out to us via email or cell phone and receive a response quite quickly. We would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or even if you want to talk to us about a young person or even if it's your child that you're dealing with, we would be more than happy to provide you with any resources or supports.
Awesome. Thank you, Rubina. I think that was a lovely presentation from yourself and Brenda. It's covered quite a bit of detail regarding different aspects of where youth could be involved and different signs of how to notice it. So I'm going to open it up now for her time, and we will have your presentation on your perspective.
Okay, there we go. I had designer shoes, designer clothes. I ate at the best restaurants. I drove around in nice cars. I thought I had it all, but it all turned out to be nothing. The choices I made then landed me in a cold jail cell. Those choices still haunt me today. I'm one of the many girls that got caught in the gang lifestyle. Okay, hi, I'm Detective Constable Anisha Myette with the Vancouver Police. I'm one of the co-founders of a program called Her Time. There is a photo of both Sergeant Sandy Avelar and I. We basically created this program on the side of our desks. This is done on our days off. We are obviously with the Vancouver Police and fully supported by the executive. However, this is something that we noticed as frontline gang officers, a topic that wasn't really being covered quite as often as what you see with gang intervention with males. So we created what is known as Her Time. It's an anti-gang education program for young women on the dangers of entering the lifestyle. Basically, all the different things that can happen. We debunk a lot of the myths, the different things that people think that women aren't exposed to when they're entering that lifestyle, whether it be the drug trafficking, whether it's in the periphery or whether it's directly. So we'll just go to the next slide. So what we do is we're kind of two-tiered. We're proactive and reactive. Proactive being targeting certain age groups. So we'll start in elementary school. Unfortunately, it does start that young. We're talking to kids as young as 12 years old in regards to the dangers of the lifestyle. We usually go around with a woman, an experiential speaker who's formerly lived the lifestyle, and will share her story and what she's gone through. Now, the reactive side of it is we target more high school to university, post-secondary age, and also other law enforcement that's around North America. Sandy will get into a little bit more of where we've presented, but a lot of it is just for the idea that this wasn't a topic that was really talked about, but it's obviously a very, very big issue. Wherever there is a male gangster, there is a girlfriend or girlfriends next to him. So we also do community forums for parents, which has been really successful for us. We've actually gone up to Prince George, where there was a lot of issues going on in that community, and had a really good presentation with parents of a lot of the students in that particular community. And then we also, which Sandy will also get into a little bit later, is we don't just do presentations. We have bricks and mortar girls groups that we have 2 locations. We have 8 different groups running. We have 60 young women that are in those programs right now. And it's basically an empowerment program and also an anti-gang messaging, anti-sex trafficking messaging, just to have these girls, you know, provide them with the tools to be able to have a successful future. And also there's counseling that's within it as well to help them with any trauma and abuse that they may have experienced.
Okay, as Anisha said, our audience varies. It's everywhere from elementary school students to law enforcement, parents, community groups. So we have different presentations that we customize for different groups. So you don't have to worry about your 12-year-old having the same presentation as you or one that a grade 12 would. Similarities, yes, but differences in age-appropriate behavior and age-appropriate presentations. The experiential speakers we have all been they're well out of the gang and organized crime life. They've proven on their own that they've done that and really want to be out there explaining what it's really like, and what better, I know CFSU also has experiential speakers, and what better message to have kids talk to someone who's actually lived that life and can actually tell them what it's like, not just what we are telling them as police officers or parents telling them or counselors telling them.
And something that's important to make note of as well is whenever we're doing presentations such as these, because it's so image oriented, and we don't want to repeat a lot of what CFSEU is saying, but just really want to hammer out the fact that for young kids, being vulnerable and or even knowingly getting involved into this, image is such a major factor for organized crime and gangs in Vancouver. It's all about being seen and how much you can flash. So we think it's really, really important to not ever mention the gangs. So our speakers will never say what gang that their ex-boyfriend is from, because we don't want to glamorize it. And I think that's a really big thing that we've noticed even within the schools, is we really don't mention, we'll do a brief background on the gang climate, but we really don't like to glamorize the names or kind of even give them that platform.
I wasn't even 15 years old, and I was a very sheltered child who grew up an only child, only grandchild, so I really was naive to the world. He was kind of like this hero right off the get-go, and we spent the night, hanging out, getting to know each other, and the next thing I know, I'm a mom at 19. He started coming home later and later, and then coming home with wads of cash and giving it to me. And I would say, okay, this is definitely not from your day job. Like, what is going on? Don't worry about it. I'm just dabbling in some harmless stuff, just harmless stuff. And we got into a fight, and he started strangling me. I'm 7 months pregnant, and he threw me across the coffee table, and it started strangling me again. And I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. I just went quiet.
So a lot of the women that we work with have obviously experienced quite a bit of trauma. So we have an array of experiential speakers that work with us. And even if you get the opportunity to hear their different stories, some willingly got involved and will be very open and honest about it, and said they just loved the fast life and they loved the money. But if they could go back 15 to 20 years and talk to their younger self, they would say what they say to the girls that we go and speak to, and the boys in schools nowadays, which is, it is just not worth it. And then we also have the girls that were very vulnerable and were targeted. Like Rubina had mentioned earlier, it's friends, it's kind of who they keep as company. And that's something that's really, really heavy for parents to keep an eye on. Workshops. So we do a lot of workshops with different community groups. So for example, Children of the Street Society has been a long running organization that does a lot of work with sex trafficking. We do a lot of workshops with them and their speakers to kind of give them the tools to better present to schools that they go into when it comes to the facet of women and organized crime. We are working towards one thing we will mention is we are not government funded. We do this all kind of through private donors and on our own time, and fortunately have had a lot of assistance from the Vancouver Police Foundation.
And we do not get paid for this.
Yes, this is completely voluntary. So we are working towards getting funding for scholarships, because we really want, for the girls groups, we have like a 12-week curriculum that they go through, and once they graduate, we would love to be able to provide scholarships for these girls. So that's kind of a goal of her time. And we also do mentorships, whether it be with us, our coaches that are working at our bricks and mortar locations, or our experiential speakers. Of course, we oversee all that just to make sure for safety reasons. But we have mentorships done through those 3 different avenues. And of course, the continuation of presentations, and then some partnerships that Sandy will speak to.
We have partnered with Safer Schools Together. We present at we have presented at their annual conference, Gangs and Guns, and we plan to be doing it next year again, I believe. We also have joined up with their GRIP program, which is a gang reduction program. So we go to communities that are a little bit farther out than Lower Mainland, for example, the Okanagan, up north, different places in BC, where gives more reach. And then we have the female girl angle that we bring to them. And then they have the reputation and the standing. They've been in the business a long time with school security, school safety. And it works out really well as far as reaching more kids and more parents and community groups as yourselves. Odd Squad has helped us. They helped us launch. We launched in 2017 with the help of Odd Squad Productions. They do a lot of our video filming and are a great help again in getting the message out. Crime Stoppers, we have so your grade 10 students will see this. Crime Stoppers has a video called, the program's called Say Something, See Something. And this is shown to grade 10 students in the province. And you'll see us on there talking about organized crime and gang life, including the female aspect of it. And most recent for us is our partnership with the Washington Kids Foundation. So with this partnership, we were able to create brick and mortar locations to actually have girls groups that run twice a week after school throughout the year, including a summertime program. We have 3-month curriculum that's been created for us by educators, and the girls will run through this. How it works is we have an older group and a younger group of girls. So it's age appropriate, which is huge, right? Because they're different stages in their life. Right now we have two groups running in Surrey. We also have North Vancouver, and talks on the work for a couple of other cities in the Lower Mainland. And we have coaches who work full-time with the program. They become very familiar with the girls and act as mentors for them, as well as a host of volunteers who also help with the program. And this really gives the girls a home base, a place where they can feel safe. And they go through different, for example, journaling, when they go through physical activity, just different things to really bring out themselves and find out where they feel they fit. And another idea that's been created with this program is that it's a mentorship program. So you have a younger girl who will move on to the older girls program, and then she has the ability to go on as a mentor for the younger girls and then become another coach, hopefully with a paid position with WKF and her time. And really it could be it's a beautiful relationship. The girls are talking to a girl who's been through it and really gets it. And that's, it's a great thing that started, especially with the past year. It really, really helped out some of the girls. And the funding, again, comes from outside groups such as the Vancouver Police Foundation, Canadian Tire Jumpstart Program. It's worked out really well. And we're hoping just to grow it more and more.
And just to add to the playbook and the curriculum, it does encompass education on sex trafficking, anti-gang messaging, self-defense. We do physical literacy, so getting active, getting the endorphins going. And then also skill sets. We teach them about financial responsibility. One thing they're doing is they're building a kitchen in there. So we'll be doing some culinary cooking classes for kids to help them build those skills. And then just a lot of empowerment stuff. To look at yourself in the mirror and realize the potential that you have as a young woman, and that you don't need to go kind of down that route, and just to provide them with a bit more of a stronger support network.
We will add to that. You don't have to be from the community of Surrey or the community of North Vancouver, or whichever one we open next or able to open next. You can be from anywhere. We do have transportation, so we can try and figure that out too. And there's no cost to the program for families. And if, for example, running shoes are needed for physical literacy, we'll take care of that.
We'll make it happen. And we have on-site counselors as well.
Helpline.
Oh, yes. And we're in the middle of working on this, of course, with funding, but we are in the process of having a 24/7 helpline that we'll be launching. And that's going to be manned by clinical counselors and registered therapists. So we're really very excited about that. Obviously, for the beginning, it's going to be for the girls that are within the program, and then it will slowly expand out to having public access.
We're in the test phases right now.
So my name is Ebony Chipman, and I'm a convicted felon. When my ex started selling drugs, I stopped dancing. And when I stopped dancing, he was in full control. And I mean control to the levels of my ex-boyfriend told me how he wanted my eyebrows arched, how my hair had to look, what lip liner I was allowed to wear, how smoky my eye makeup had to be. Even when I was getting my nails done, he'd be sitting beside me in the nail salon telling the lady what design to put on my nails. We're in the mall parking lot on a Saturday afternoon. This guy pulls in close to us, and my ex said to me, "Oh, there's so-and-so, so here's some money and you can go shopping." So I was like, this is great. So I went to touch the handle to get out of the car, and it was a scene from a movie. Cops came out of everywhere. So my name.
To any girls who meet these guys that are Prince Charming, who sweep you off your feet, make you think they're going to be there for you no matter what. They're your family. They're all that matters to you. It's all a lie. It's empty. Nothing but pain and loss is going to come. That's guaranteed. I don't care how much Gucci and Louboutins and Louis bags are going to make everything okay. You are selling your soul, literally, and nothing okay is going to come from it. It's guaranteed loss, hurt. You're going to see people die. You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose yourself.
So we often, whenever we do these presentations, talk about the different resources, you know, whether it be you want to talk to the police or not. There are other people, you know, whether it be school counselors that are there, that will be there to help. There's Crime Stoppers, there will be these helplines. And we actually also do refer a lot of girls to the CFSU program just because it's so well put together and organized and funded. But yeah, so if there's any questions or you guys need anything further from us, that's our email. Of course, just give us a couple days because we do this on our days off. We're working full time as well. And we do advise people if it's an emergency to obviously go the appropriate route, but you can get a hold of us there on that email address.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for your presentation as well. I think it gave a very interesting perspective and some unique opportunities for young females to really get involved and grow as people and just learn who they are. And I really liked that opportunity that you were able to provide. And it sounds like you're growing every day. Now we're going to kind of go into some of the panelist questions, and it was any sort of questions that have kind of come from the public. We'll do as many as we can, but we are limited on a bit of time, so we'll see how many we can get through. So for the first one, I will open it up to, I believe, possibly Rubina might be the first one to answer, and then we can go from there. But what would you consider to be some of the most significant cultural glorification of gangs that tends to outweigh the many risks based on the perspective of youth entering them? I think you mentioned quite a few in your presentation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also Anisha also touched on this. It's that glorification of the lifestyle. So the things like having the nice clothes, and the young woman on the video from the Her Time presentation talks about it, you know, the designer clothes, the designer shoes, the bags, going out to the fancy restaurants and bars and clubs and not having to wait and having that attention. For some people, it's that thrill-seeking behavior that they're searching for to compensate for something else that's missing in their life, which usually stems from things such as, you know, family issues or childhood traumas. And so, you know, it's really important, just like Sandy and Anisha said, to give them something, give youth and young people, giving them something to replace that need with, right? So instead of it being something negative, such as the need for designer stuff, empowering young people to look for that gratification and that feeling of worthiness from something else. So it could be from sports or engaging in a hobby that they may enjoy.
Did you have anything else you want to add from our panelists here?
No, I think Rubina nailed it. It's just taking away what they think is important and the image of organized crime and drug trafficking, and really having them understand how short-lived it is. And I think hearing from experiential speakers, whether it be through the CFSEU program or Her Time, is huge, because it really resonates with kids. Because we can stand up there as long as we want and say what we want. In the end, when it's lived experience saying, hey, if I could go back 15 years and do it all over again, don't be dumb, right? Is really what it comes down to.
Awesome. So, and then I think now we'll go into a bit more of a controversial question, but are parents responsible for youth joining gangs or committing crimes?
I can get into that one a little bit. So yeah, I see the smiles there. So there is a part parents play, definitely, right? I always say it starts from, year one, right? What we've learned is that the more involved parents are, the less likely that individuals might go in that negative direction. But it's not a black and white situation. There's a lot of gray in that as well. So what we encourage parents to do is, number one, get involved, like right away, right when they're born. And my thing is, I've worked in a lot of like youth sections as well, and I get this question asked to me quite a bit. What can I do? And I always go back to two things. And Rubina kind of mentioned this in our presentation. Number one, know who they hang out with. That's one thing parents can do. Know their circle of friends. Question them if need be. That's your right as a parent, to question and to ask what you need to ask. So make sure they hang around that positive group, number one. And number two, this has been mentioned as well, is get them involved. And we just talked about this, in whether it's sports or any sort of hobby or extracurricular activity that kind of keeps them occupied and in a positive environment. I found that helps individuals as well. Far too often what we see, just working patrol, like when you see youth just wandering the streets, they're often chances that they're going to get into something negative, right? Because they're looking for something to do. And this doesn't mean they're quote unquote bad kids, not at all. It's just they're looking for stuff to do, and they are youth and kids as well. So if they're preoccupied and stuff, it helps. And I just use my example, like I'm no different, right? I grew up playing sports, and you can't really go out on a Saturday night when you have a game Sunday morning or practices during the week, because you're committed to that sport or that activity. So we like to blame, or a lot of people like to say it's pretty simple. It's the parents' fault, but it's a lot more complex than that. Breaking it down, there's a lot more issues, because and all of us have seen individuals that are in that lifestyle that come from, the parents that maybe gave them everything, which is a good and bad thing. It's another subject altogether, but they had all the support there. So it doesn't mean that, it's just the parents' fault. There's a lot, it's a very dynamic question, but there's certain things that parents can do to kind of mitigate that.
And Candace, when we looked at, as a part of our program, we have a risk assessment tool that looks at various different domains in a person's life that can lead them into the gang lifestyle. And what's interesting is that when we looked at some of those key risk factors, things such as parental addiction, so having one or both parents with an addiction issue, things such as the experiences of childhood sexual or physical abuse, mental health. So whether it's the young person themselves that have a mental health concern, or a parent in the home, or if there's significant childhood trauma that's related to all those different factors, that also plays a role. So it's not to say that, we're not blaming parents and we're not pointing the finger at parents, because every family situation is unique. You may have, a family where there's a lot of different things going on, but the kids turn out fine. And, with that, we can't ignore resiliency and those resiliency factors that come into play. So it could be that feeling that the children have, that they're connected, even if it's just to one person, whether it's a grandparent, an aunt, or a positive person in the community. All those things play a role. So we can't, it's not fair, and we're not sitting here and pointing the finger at parents, because it's a lot more complex, like Bob said, and there's a lot of different factors and layers that play into a person's decision and that pathway to getting into the gang lifestyle.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that reiterates to that question. And I think it came in from the public with such a bit of a controversial side to it. But as you say, there's so many factors that come into play when you're considering this type of a situation when youth are maybe getting involved. So another question that came from the public, though, was about reiterating what protections are in place for youth that ensure their safety after deciding to ask for that help to get out of the gang. So maybe you can speak to that again.
Bob, did you want to speak to that?
I was waiting for you, actually.
Oh,
Rubina.
okay.
Yeah, you might have a better answer than I do. So yeah, I'll add to your
Sure.
there.
So through our program, we understand that people who are exiting the gang life may come with certain safety risk factors, and depending on the situation, we will work with the individual and their family or whoever they identify as family to mitigate those. It could be anything from certain police tactics that I won't get into on this presentation, developing a safety plan and some safety tips for young people. And especially for young people, one of the main things is around social media, because everyone is so connected on social media, and youth are really quick to say where they are or to say what they're up to or what have you. And so one of the very, very first things that we tell youth is to get off social media and to disconnect and lay low for a little while. In the 5 years that we've been running this program, we have very seldomly had situations where our client's safety is at such high risk that we have had very dire situations. There have been some cases where individuals have had to leave town, and through the support of their family and other resources, we've been able to assist with that process. However, paying for things like relocation is not something that our program does, but we definitely work with the family to mitigate those risks to the youth and to the family.
And it's not another myth out there is that it's hard to get out once someone's in. Yeah, it is more difficult, obviously, when they're in, but it's not impossible, right? Especially for youth. What we found is youth are typically kind of on the lower end of the structure, and they're easily replaceable, right? For the higher level guys. So, and they don't want someone in that organization where there's a lot of, let's say, heat on them. So that's one of our kind of our techniques is if we put heat on them, the uppers realize that, you know what, there's too much for us, that maybe it's time to let this person go. But a lot of that, like Rubina mentioned, is up to that individual, where that social media piece is huge. We've actually had people where, yeah, they've gone off social media, but you know, it only lasts about a week or two. They're so kind of in that social media lifestyle that they want to keep connected. And, you know, I understand that connection for them, especially youth, is huge, but we really emphasize that fact. Hey, listen, your step one is to kind of disengage with people that you know that are in that, and that's like a challenge in itself for some individuals to do. But once that starts, then we can kind of work at other stuff and see what we can do for them. So a lot of them it is up to them, because people do move on. There have been cases where, you know, there's some intimidation and threats involved, and like I said, that's another kind of piece, but it's quite rare, especially with youth. These people, the higher ups, move on and they find a replacement quite quickly.
Yeah. And I think with that, it sounds like a good challenge for families to do. Maybe you try and go off of social media for 72 hours or something and do like a practice run of just not being connected in that same way. And we talked about sexploitation in our webinars previously and different things of being involved online. So possibly that's like a new challenge that people could do to try and disconnect a little bit more. As much as we do advertise over social media for a lot of our different events and things like that, I think it comes with the balance of properties of being on and off of those types of media components. Another question that we had was, what is the most fulfilling part of your jobs? So maybe we could do a roundtable and kind of hear from you guys regarding how you feel after doing your job for so long. And maybe we can start with her time and we'll kind of work around the screen here.
For me personally, probably the relationships. You know, for me, I've been in law enforcement for 25-ish years. So it's relationships in the community at work, and just seeing people grow. You basically meet people when they're almost children, and you see them grow into adults. So that's quite neat.
Yeah, similar, just the friendships that I've made and the family along the way. But to be honest, I love putting bad guys away. I really do. Just, we won't get into the justice system and all that, but just, you know, and I know actually Sandy and I both love doing that. There is such a good feeling when someone that you know has inflicted so much pain on people is gone, right? And that's a huge thing for us.
How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I think with every police officer out there, it's pretty standard, and it's no different for me. It's actually like, you know, you're in a position to actually help people that really need help. And that's one of the reasons why I joined is, you know, you have, especially now being at CFSU, there's, you know, we have resources and we have this program that, you know, that can genuinely change people's lives. So for me, that's probably the most rewarding. And that's been my career as well, like just being able to help people, and especially when they're at their lowest, right?
Yeah. How about you, Rubina?
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, very similar to everyone else. It's about being a part of a process that's going to change a person's trajectory in their life, like to something more positive. Seeing people succeed, and you know, just also when you are working with families and parents who go from a place where they're just so feeling hopeless and you know, upset that their child is engaging in such activities, leading them to a place where they're happy and they're now feeling really proud of their child. It's an amazing experience, and it's just it feels really rewarding to be a part of that process.
Awesome. And I think we have Brenda left if she wants to share.
Hi, yeah, you know, just to reiterate, I think for me, it's sort of twofold. I deal with the media, representing CFSEU, and really being able to establish those relationships with the media and being able to tell our story and the work that we're able to do. And then on the other side of it, giving the presentation, the End Gang Life presentation in schools and within the community. And inevitably, after every presentation, we've had somebody come up to us to say, hey, you know what you said in that presentation has truly touched me, and I need help. And I can't even express the feeling once someone has come to you and you're actually able to help them, and see them get either referred to Her Time or through our own gang intervention and exiting program, see them get the resources that they need to be able to successfully exit out of that side of life and be successful and enjoy all of the pleasures in life that the rest of us do, and they're successful like that. That is extremely rewarding, and I couldn't have asked for a better job.
Wow, that sounds really great. And I think from my perspective in Port Coquitlam and in Coquitlam, being part of the community police station and working with the Coquitlam RCMP, us being able to speak to all these subject matter experts and bringing this information to the public, I find that super rewarding for myself, and just being able to provide that education and that empowerment as well of being able to move forward and find these resources that can really support you. And again, we get people who come in and are just very unsure of where to go, and that's what I think community policing is about us being able to connect people and build those relationships. So again, I think it goes back to that huge relationship piece of everything that we do. And I'm noticing the time, we have about 5 minutes left. I will end it with this one last question. So what is one thing that you think everyone should take away from this topic today? And we'll go around a round table again, but maybe let's start with Brenda this time.
Sure, yeah, I think we've sort of touched on it. It's to make sure that you're engaged with our youth, whether you're a parent, a mentor, a close family member. Understand the responsibility we have, that our youth need our support, and they now more than ever, when we see the effects of social media, be engaged, talk to our youth. Don't let all the different influences affect their choices, because as we know, every choice that you make could have a positive or negative outcome. So ensuring that we're engaged, know what they're doing, and enable them to make those positive choices is extremely important.
Thank you. And let's go to Bob.
So when we kind of do this presentation, this is one point I emphasize is that, this can happen, right? We tend to think, or some people tend to think that it's, the people that are kind of on that side of the town that this happens to. But just from my experience, like in the last couple of years, like this can be anyone. It doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter your ethnic background, how much money a family makes, a single parent, both parents, it doesn't matter. We've seen it, right? In order to kind of get over that, like, we need to kind of take the steps necessary. And like I keep emphasizing, it starts from day one, right? That starts from day one. Get involved in your child's life, and kind of give them the opportunity to succeed as they grow.
Awesome. And how about you, Rubina?
Yeah, I just want to echo the comments of Brenda and Bob and just kind of add in there that, given that our audience is mostly parents, and just working in this field for so long, like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of the reasons why kids and youth get involved in this lifestyle is because of things that are happening in their life and their family home and their family situations. So as a parent, just do your part, take responsibility in being an emotionally, physically, and psychologically absent parent as much as you can, because it will pay dividends in the future.
And Anisha and Sandy.
Yeah, I think just kind of in writing that curriculum that we did with the educators, it's something that really stuck out to us is it's not just one person. It does take multiple resources in a community to come together. And I think we're in a place where we are working with community groups, with different agencies, and parents to kind of come together and provide that support network. I don't think it's just a one-stop shop for a situation like this. It's pool everyone you can together to help and provide that support.
Yeah, and it's like everyone said, it doesn't discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to think it'll happen to someone else, not to scare people, but be awake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and that's we've only touched on the surface of this topic today, and for us, we've given you a lot of different resources that are available that you can really expand on this topic. So please check them out. I just want to thank you guys again as panelists for joining us for this great discussion, and thank you to our attendees for signing in. I hope you found this webinar informative and you know where you can go next.